This is using the SIN USA data in SAS for 5th module that is looking at healthcare costs. Steve Parenti here, University of Minnesota. So for this module, we're going to be focused on the goal of generating the data that has to go into this spreadsheet for week 5. So to do that, we're going to be going to the SAS online tool set. Again, you can do this with our SAS desktop. This is our predominant way to show you how what's going on. I'm going to be signing in using my student ID. And getting loaded in. And the first thing we're going to do is look for the program for Proto 5. And it will be using similar databases in terms of what we need to do. So here's the Proto 5 file here. We're going to open that up. And again, just as before, if I just run this library name, this is probably the best test here, it will come back with an error saying you don't have appropriate access. And so this is largely coming from the instructor side of putting this code in. So we need to give ourselves appropriate access, and the way to do that is to go and find, again, the claims files that we're going to be bringing in. You can sort of see them listed here, the Synth USA Claim X 2015. Find it there, do a right click, look under properties, and there's the name. Again, this is sort of sloppy, but if you can kind of get out here, then you can start back here from where the backslash is. Do it Control C, or I can do it by right clicking. I'm going to go to where this part is here, and everything up until there, replace it. Control V. Oops. Looks like I didn't have to go that far. And then I'm going to also take this and again copy it. Put it here. Don't want 2 of those backslashes. So again, that's going to point us to the utility files and such. Now it's sad that it just gave me an error message saying, wait, you don't have authorization. I think it tried to auto save this. So one thing we should do also immediately is resave this program make it our own. So we're going to go into locations again, click on files, and we're going to go under my courses. This is really for you, and I'm going to customize it. Let's say my Proto. Again, you can make it anything you want. I mean, literally, it could be My Little Pony. Not sure where that came from, but too much TV as a youth. So there's the program. It's mine, pony and all. So I can go down below here. We're going to get into some of the meat in this program in a second. And the last thing we have to do is we make sure we change this part here. It's going to be pointing again to the wrong place. So best thing to do is look at some of the illustrations. This is really, you should be basically getting all of your stuff here when you come back week after week. So you can actually look at what we generated for, say, week 4, and really kind of probably copy the whole thing, honestly. Again, you can go here, go from the very, go from the outset. I'm going to do Control C, hit copy. I'm going to then Control V for paste. And it's supposed to be my initials. I'm just going to call it My States, PA, New York, MD. Bandyman. And before we go much further, let's save this program. And let's talk about what we're doing. We're basically reading in and sorting claims. So this creates a work file, so we're not disturbing the original source. We are then using this first last logic and build these counters again. So we're actually building a counter that will be a summary at the person level of the amount allowed as well as all this other component. Now, amount allowed actually is already computed, so that's kind of handy. The cost share variable is not, and so that becomes coinsurance plus copayment plus deductible, just like what we wrote out on this Excel spreadsheet before. So when we get into the actual program, we're actually using Boolean logic here to count all these things up, but then when we get to the last ID, it's actually going to say, okay, if the range is between here, then I'm going to create a dummy variable or categorical variable that basically will say, okay, my expenses were between 0 and 1,000, or 10,000 and 5,000, or 5,000 and 10,000, etc. And it'll do the same thing for cost share. The reason why they're not identical is that cost share typically is less than provider payment. And this is always going to be more than the person's cost share in general. Now, that may not be true, let's be so clear. If it is, you're inside the deductible and the provider has not been paid yet. But on average, when you add everything up for a year for a population, generally the allowed is usually always greater than the consumer's share. So then we sort it. This is the membership file we're sorting. We're putting out an out file called person1. We then have a merge of that person file and the claims file that we generated. We're keeping only the variables that we want. So these categorical variables, person allows and person cost, which means that actually in the summary files you could potentially use this for regression if you wanted really to adapt this program later. If we find in the merge like there's nobody that has utilization, then we set these equal to 0. We then specify labels so you know what each one of these things are. We put this everyone variable in, and that generally gives us a, if you will, categorical variable for the whole population. We run it in means, and then we use the proc means procedure to create summary statistics for all these populations. Now, up until this point, it's just a person summary because it is by person. But then when it's generated, basically it's a summary for all our states, or actually in this case the whole nation combined. And then it puts it in an output table, both the mean variables and then the sum variables. That's how we actually generate those variables. They get transposed, meaning that we flip them. So columns become rows, rows become columns, and that allows the data to be nicely organized for cutting and pasting when we then take that Excel file and flip it into an Excel file. SAS file to an Excel file, excuse me. So let's run this whole thing out and see what it does. It should generate for us a set of categories. So it's a summary for the country. Of course, we have to customize that, and we'll do that in the next module for our state choices. And again, these are your state choices, not mine, as you get into them. We're running away. And we're running. Okay, so that just went through the sorting. So there we are. So again, amazing. This is like the quarter. This is the size again of that Maryland population for that article from way back that we did on mainframes and old technology. Most of you might have been alive, maybe. So ESI population, we know this is always our telltale that this works well. Everyone means 170 million people, and then we look into how many folks had less. So this means 42% of the population employer-sponsored had basically less than $1,000 in terms of their share of patient burden. It's about 68%. And then we look at the population here who had, say, greater than $300,000, which is ridiculously small. But actually, when you blow it out to the U.S. population, it's, non-trivial. 67,000 people is what it's estimating it to be. And you can see how things work in Medicaid as well, Medicare Advantage, and then the non-group market. Pretty cool little program. So this gives you the meat of what you're going to be needing to use, obviously, to fill out this table. The next stage is how to talk about customizing this program to put the information in, and again, following what we did the previous weeks, showing you how to put it into the quiz components for the SAC. This concludes this module on customizing your SIN-USA data in SAS to create your statistics for your assignment.